you to the next speaker. In fact, he has already participated in the panel, but it's a pleasure to introduce you to Andoni Cosillo. He is Assistant Professor of English at this university. He's also a research affiliate at the Centre for Fantasy and the Fantastic, University of Glasgow. And he's writing on Middle English works, William Shakespeare, C.S. Lewis, and mainly J.R.R. Tolkien, has been published in some of the most prestigious journals in our field. I'm not going to read the names of the journals because of this lack of time, but definitely he is a brilliant scholar, and I think that we are really lucky to have Andoni here. Andoni,
thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I feel honored to be part of such a panel of experts who welcome an amateur like I to join their ranks, perhaps undeservingly. Readers may not find challenging to determine whether a given work is categorizable within the weird Western subgenre. It is an altogether different matter, the attempt of explaining the properties that make a Western weird, or that of defining with precision the nature of this type of literature. For this, it is useful to review some of the criticism available. Complicated as it is to find a perfect, all-encompassing definition, some appear to be overly restrictive. For Paul Green, a weird Western is a Western story incorporating horror, supernatural or fantasy elements and themes, as David introduced us to the definition before. Such statement excludes mixtures of science fiction and Westerns, for example, which receive different labels from Green depending on their idiosyncratic elements, settings, and technological devices. However, Green's narrow and static definition provides little clarity when cataloging works from a subgenre categorized by its content's hybridization. These composite varieties are what Jerome Winter's clarification attempts to capture. Quote, readers should beware that the operative term weird here does not pretend to denote a coherent genealogical canon of work exclusively categorizable as cosmic horror, dark imaginative fantasy, hard science fiction, work with Gothic or decadent trappings, off-putting postmodern experimentation, steampunk, quirky storytelling, or generally subversive or subcultural subject matter, but alternately, all of the above, some of the above, and none of the above. Winter's remark conforms to the latest scholarship in the area, that is not restricted to academia only. Since the beginning of the 21st century, the weird Western subgenre has become a mainstream phenomenon with a plethora of diverse expressions. However, this strand of the Western has at least a long-standing tradition of over a century and a half. The first known work is The Steam Man of the Prairies, as David also introduced us to the work. A dime novel by Edward Sylvester Ellis, published in 1868, with a clear turn towards science fiction, which properly laid out the foundations. Soon more followed, and reached more readers with a vigorous push from the pulps in the 30s, and in the mid-50s, a few soared in popularity thanks to cinema and television. It was not until the 1960s that the subgenre slowly started paving the way towards mass appeal by reviving and revamping the form, content, and themes of the by then outdated Western. In this early phase of weird Westerns, the North American tradition has received an almost undivided attention from the Suffield scholars. As a consequence of this neglect, all the regional varieties remain unacknowledged. An entire collection published between the final year of the 20s and the beginning of the 30s in Spain is missing from all bibliographical compendiums of early weird Westerns to this day. This series of anonymous works, published in a format akin to dime novels, bore the general name of El Sheriff, the Sheriff, and were published in Madrid first by Prensa Moderna from 1929 to 1932, 161 volumes, and later by Editorial Fénix from 1932 to 1934, 111 volumes. Each of the 272 novellas contains the adventures of Sheriff Arizona Jim and his assistants Pete and Porthos, which involve recurrent visits to the worlds of fantasy, science fiction, and horror, among many other genres, in any possible combination. The series, illustrated in its entirety by Juan José Pedranza Blanco, started on the 27th of April of 1929 and ended with the demise of Arizona Jim in July of 1934. It must be admitted that the lack of regard for this collection of early weird westerns is not limited to scholarship in English. Its own motherland has not shown much kindness either, and the number of extant studies in Spanish has not even reached double digits. On the 20th of June of 2011, in a blog post, Pedro Porcel, our previous speaker, makes the keen observation that the collection of El Sheriff contains the first weird westerns made in Spain. The fact that Porcel tags the weird label on these westerns in an explicit manner is remarkable, for it underscores the property that made this collection stand out from cartloads of earlier and contemporary conventional Spanish westerns that flooded the market of the Iberian Peninsula. However, aside from the scanty allusions and the illustrated covers displayed, readers of the blog post are left wanting a more thorough analysis of why these works are indeed weird westerns and what detailed characteristics do they present. The same is true of other scholarly studies on the collection. Any attempt to examine the entire collection in such a way during a talk would yield a superficial analysis. Therefore, the best possible alternative is to undertake an in-depth examination of one of the earliest samples that remains and reproduce. The study of number 12, because number 11 unfortunately is still unknown, La Reina del País Misterioso, will shed light on why El Sheriff marked the birth of the first Spanish weird westerns written in the Iberian Peninsula, and the way this specific work's particularities conform to the quirks of the subgenre according to the latest theory in the field. I find it necessary to provide a highly condensed summary of La Reina for those without access to the work. Unforeseen circumstances force Arizona Jim, Pete, and Porthos to land their borrowed aircraft in Gohara, a warm and populated country in the deserted expanse of Alaska during the cold season. Arizona Jim and his men are soon enmeshed in a political conspiracy that aims to overthrow the young queen of the region, Orana. Plotters, Tom Red, Otuma, and Cotton tried to end with the lives of the queen and foreigners, but they failed, and Arizona Jim, Pete, and Porthos slay schemers and restore peace. They soon leave this volcanic land after celebrating victory with the queen and royalist. Regardless of the artistic quality of the text, the creative genius of the authors that shines through every page deserves some credit, especially considering the early date of publication. Before readers face the actual story, the title, La Reina del País Misterioso, the Queen of the Mysterious Country, already warns readers that this is by no means a regular Western. The motives behind the authorial intent regarding the location of choice require additional analysis. The vast unexplored territory of Alaska offered Spanish readers a somewhat plausible uncharted location for an unknown weird country and civilization. This choice appears to be an artistic device that gave some loose consistency to the plot. The foiled plane crash that ensues in this foggy region justifies the otherwise unlikely discovery of the kingdom of Gohara. It is necessary to note that the melting pot of incongruous and improbable elements, especially Arizona Jim's and Pete's enthusiasm at the prospect that the accident will nudge them to a new adventure, was read in a humorous tone by readers of that period. Humor is, in fact, the element that helps to reconcile the traditional Western and the new weird in La Reina. A narrative with a serious intent would have fallen apart by this point, condemning the world-building attempt, and resulting in the story being discarded even by the most credulous readers. The plot is colored and improved by a lingering, though not obtrusive, lightheartedness of the characters' remarks and actions. Porthos, Pete, and Arizona Jim alleviate tensions by making casual remarks about the strange country they're about to land in, instead of being alarmed by the failure of the aircraft's engine. In this situation, Arizona Jim's nerves of steel highlight in a few words his character, as much as Pete's enthusiasm for discovery and adventure is remarked by the way he welcomes the unexpected delay. The authors takes delight in showing rather than in describing, which results in an agile and entertaining narrative full of veiled comical touches. Hidden humor pervades the pages of La Reina, giving consistency to the tale by making readers tolerate pseudo-scientific explanation that Cablaca's volcanic activity safeguards the region from Arctic climate, or the appearance of hybrids between horses and reindeer. It is proper to underscore that there is a terrible inconsistency that cannot be justified by any means. Although readers learn from Arizona Jim that the engine, está averiado, just broke down, statement followed by an explosion that renders the plane powerless, the villain Tom Red starts the motor later but just pouring some homemade fuel without any need for repairs. The machine had to be in working order to solve the rebels' problem of casting Urana, Arizona Jim, and Porthos into the volcano without the opposers perishing in the attempt. Though there are alternative remedies to the plot twist that allowed the Americans to discover and enter Gohara. Simple solution would have been to make the aircraft run out of fuel. But this careless neglect reflects well the general lack of amendation. Typos and ungrammatical sentences abound, especially those that could have been amended by light copy editing. Some of the characteristics defined in the paragraphs above already point towards the wielding of the traditional Western. Most are a combination between science fiction and fantasy, with a high preference for the former, though not all fall within that domain. The fantastic component is remarkable the moment Arizona Jim, Pete, and Porthos enter this foreign land, though it continues to develop throughout. This is not only because they find a populated country in the deserted expanse of Alaska, but also owing to the unusual warm temperature they experience in the locale. To twist matters further, by the end, readers discover that the ultimate conspirator that drives and controls the rebellion behind the scenes, the high priest Cotton, is una bruja más que centenaria, a centuries-old witch in disguise, algo que no era humano ni posible, something that was neither human nor possible. It is indispensable to bear in mind that the production of the works of El Sheriff had first and foremost an economic end, which was selling all the printed volumes that the publisher could. Although this may not diminish its artistic value to a number close to zero, it is important to acknowledge that the goal of commercial success and the demanding turnaround hovers ominously over each work. Nevertheless, each work captures flitting glimpses of the epoch in which it was written. It helps us better understand both the period's popular readership and the contemporary emergence of a new literary subgenre, the weird Western. It has been argued in the past that the extravagant and exaggerated weird elements were the driving force that pushed readers to continue consuming the new volumes of El Sheriff, published every week. I would argue instead that the humorous component is what helped readers digest and enjoy these otherwise unbelievable new weirdings. A catalogue of marbles would have hardly been enough to engage readers who had other higher quality alternatives, such as the contemporary collection Aventuras, Adventures, also published by Prensa Moderna and later by Editorial Fénix. The large number of volumes that compose El Sheriff and its early date, much earlier than most, make this large body of works a landmark collection of the subgenre. Although its impact on works written in English was insignificant, owing to the lack of available translations in a not yet fully globalized world, it is important to recognize its early nature and genius in the context of a subgenre that had, by that time, very little development. An additional goal of this paper is not just to provide concentrated reading of La Reina. With this particular sample, the purpose is to draw the attention of criticism and start, and hopefully stimulate, a transnational discussion. A complete and thorough analysis of the collection could shed some light on the particularities of this appropriation of the weird Western, and the impact of Spanish literary tradition, culture, and politics on these hybrids of the Western. A longer version of this paper will soon be published as an open and access publication under the same title. If the presentation has sparked your curiosity, please message me at the email on the slide, and I would be glad to send you digitized volumes of El Sheriff. Thank you all very much for your attention.